Welcome to Mental Health Monday. My name is Mick Coyle. Coming up on the programme this week,
it's an opportunity to at least find some meaning from the suffering that both I and my family continue to feel today.
Are you naturally quite a fit and healthy kind of guy? Is it something which you find that comes relatively easily, even though it's not an easy thing to do?
When I'm in challenges such as this, my mental health's probably the best it is in terms of feeling really, really purposeful and strong.
And I'll be reminding you how you can make connections with mental health organisations within your community. It's Mental Health Monday.
The home of the UK's conversation about mental health. Welcome to Mental Health Monday. You are more than welcome. Thank you for your time, your streams and your download. This is episode 326, believe it or not, of the podcast. But that is not the number we are focusing on today. We are focusing on number 366 because our guest is James Cooper. Now, James is doing something every day this year. He's doing it to raise money for Samaritans, but he's also doing it to raise awareness of mental health and to explore his own journey when it comes to mental health. James Cooper is every day this year running a marathon, 26.2 miles every single day. So, I mean, what an incredible feat. If you get this on the day that the podcast is out, today's day 140. That's 140 marathons. We spoke after marathon 136. What an unbelievable thing that he is doing. So in this conversation, we'll talk about just how difficult it is, about setting foot through the door every single day. Then we'll move on to the wider conversation about why he's doing it. Now, James has had personal experience in regard to negative mental health himself, but he's also lost a family member to suicide. Now, we do mention that in the conversation, so there's a warning there that will be part of the conversation today. James is also doing some fantastic stuff as well around inspiring other people, health, advice, all that kind of stuff under the guise of smiling. Now, I'll put a link to his smiling.com page, and it's smiling with 3 Gs. The reason for those 3 Gs, James will explain as part of the conversation. I'll also put a link to his fundraising page up on the podcast notes as well, so that you can hopefully get behind James. What we'll hopefully do is catch up with him later on in the year. For now, though, let's find out about why he's doing it, what he's doing, how practically he's making it actually work, and of course those much broader reasons for getting involved in this incredible project. I started off by asking James about what it was like stepping through those doors, knowing that there were 366 marathons to go, day 1, day 2, day 3. How did he cope right at the start?
Day 1 was kind of okay. There's a lot of pent-up anxiety going into it, thinking you just want the day to come when you can start the challenge. All that worry that's in your head and things like that, you want that just to subside. You can just go out, get your steps in, get day 1 done safely, tick in the box. But on day 2, I remember waking up and I just had this sense of dread. This kind of sense of dread that, oh wow, what have I set myself up for here? It often would dissipate the moment my feet would, get the shoes on and take those first few steps. But yeah, the first month was particularly challenging, both physically and sort of mentally, getting yourself into the process.
Oh, certainly. Can I ask you a question? Why did you pick a leap year?
Yeah, you're not the only person to ask that. Yeah, it's just how it fell. I did an article not so long ago for the Metro, and they actually said the tagline was, I forgot that it was a leap year, but I was well aware that it was a leap year. I guess it just adds a little extra spice to the challenge.
Yeah, of course we're going to talk about the mental health side of things, but tell me about the physical health, because some people would dream of running one marathon, train for months, sometimes years to be able to do it. Are you naturally quite a fit and healthy kind of guy? Is it something which you find that comes relatively easily, even though it's not an easy thing to do?
Yeah, I've been dedicated for the last kind of 9 years. I've kind of been on this trajectory of endurance challenges. My first marathon was 2015. And then from then, it's kind of escalated. I've sort of gone longer, more ultra running and things like that. So a lot of work's gone into it. So I wouldn't just say I'm kind of naturally a runner. I wasn't previous to then. So yeah, a lot of work has gone into kind of the physical. It's been a long process. I mean, my training for this challenge began in sort of, we were 2024, so 2023, like June last year, where it was a intentional build up to something pretty big. But yeah, the first month was a real physical challenge because I'd never ran 184 miles in a week. But then having to do that on a consistent basis, I knew the first month would always be the hardest because it was kind of like a bedding in process. And that was my thinking. That was kind of the hope that I had in my head, that it would get easier as the months passed. So yeah, the physical, there'd been niggles and things like that along the way, but we've managed them so far.
Tell me about sort of how you just go about it. I mean, obviously, you know, there's the old Stravas and the all kinds of Fitbits and all kinds of things that people have now, the GPS that tracks it. Do you have a set route that you run? Is it the same routes every day? Do you try and mix it up?
So I live in a place called East Grinstead, and there's an disused railway line that's now been converted into a nice trail. It's called the Forest Way, which runs from East Grinstead to a place called Groombridge. That's around about 10.5 miles long. So right there, I can have kind of 21 miles. And then from East Grinstead to Crawley, there's another disused railway line called the Worth Way, which is, I think, about 8 miles or so. So to answer your question, it's a variation of those two routes. Sometimes I'll stay on one for longer. Sometimes I'll stay on the other for longer. But the route stays the same. It's just how long I'm on either one will vary. That's kind of, from a logistic perspective, very straightforward, very simple. Both trails are lined with trees. It's very, it's very sort of immersed with nature. So that's also very good, from a mental health perspective, to feel like you're not in an urban location. And yeah, that's kind of why it's stayed the same, just because it's the more things that I can control, the better, so to speak. So yeah, it's kind of been a safe approach to just keep things as simple as possible.
You've hinted at it there, but I think it's a really crucial part, being out in nature. Now, if you start doing something on the 1st of January and you're still doing it in the middle of May, and you're still going to be doing it by August and then back into the following December, you're going to see changes as well. Is that something, maybe I'm overly romanticizing and you're just thinking, Mick, I'm just trying to get through it. But do you see flowers blooming and animals and birds singing and start thinking, I'm the year's happening and I'm getting through it?
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. I mean, I've always said at every point, even when it's been difficult, this is an absolute privilege that I'm in a position to be able to do this challenge. And yeah, it's also, I have an approach to running that I would consider kind of a mindful approach. So I don't often run with music. I often have my ears open to the sounds of nature. It's lovely hearing the bird call in the morning. And as you say, it's just seeing how everything, the subtle changes through the seasons that you can really connect with. So yes, people say, how do you not get bored? And there are elements of monotony and boredom. I'm human. I'd be lying if I said every day I'm seeing, everything changing. But there's some, yeah, it's lovely seeing how the seasons evolve, how the weather changes things, how the light now is hitting the trees and things like that. So yeah, you can romanticize it as much as you like, but it's up to you to kind of find the beauty within what many would say is the same route, but you realize that as long as you're paying attention, there's a lot of varying aspects to it, which kind of bring it a little bit more richness to the experience.
Do you think there's a sort of almost an addictive nature to, like, if I said, right, you're not going to do it tomorrow, part of you think, well, part of you would be slightly relieved because you get to have a line and a long path potentially. But if you weren't doing it, would part of you think, I've got the urge now, I've got the momentum, if you like?
100%, because obviously I'm doing it for such a cause close to my heart. If I don't complete it, there'd be a real, it would not sit with me nicely if I was told, right, you're not doing it tomorrow, the challenge is over. It would, because it's unfinished business. But don't get me wrong, the moment 31st of December hits and that final run is achieved, it will be just job done. It will be, but addiction, it's an interesting it's an interesting way of framing it, but there's absolutely so many benefits that I acquire from the endeavor. But I can tell you right now, I don't require 26.2 miles every day to obtain them. They can be achieved from going out, getting your heart rate up for like a 5K, even a mile, even a couple of miles. The extreme nature of it is kind of a means for me to obviously, hopefully, have the biggest impact.
There's obviously a reason you're doing this, and a reason why we're talking about this within a mental health sort of mindset as well. Are you okay just to share a little bit about sort of where your own head was at? We're going back a little bit of time now, but it's not so long ago that it won't be still a prominent part of your life, I'm certain.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I had a difficult period in my life between 2014 and 2015. And really, that was kind of the catalyst for me to go on this trajectory of seeing how exercise and movement can both enhance your own mental well-being, but also when you're connecting it with a cause close to your heart, it can also be a lot of meaning knowing that it can help others. Yeah, I had a difficult time. I lost both my grandparents in a very close time frame. I was going through a difficult breakup. I was living in Vietnam at the time as well, so I was away from, I felt very isolated. So, if you think of that, it's kind of like the perfect storm for some difficult times, some poor mental health. And because I was living in Vietnam, I just wasn't aware of all the incredible mental health services that there are out there, such as Samaritans, such as mine, such as Calm. And I ended up Googling how to be happy. As you do, I spent a period of time where I kind of felt very worthless and not really in a place where I felt like I had the capacity to even, get beyond what I was feeling. I didn't think it was possible. But with time, the cloud began to lift. And by Googling how to be happy, it came up with quite a few fundamental ways that can improve your well-being. That said, things like physical exercise, which I'm well aware of being a personal trainer, but other more mental aspects such as gratitude, so like positive psychology. And I kind of delved into that. And with time, I have a sort of an initiative called Smiling. And it's centered around walk, jog, or run 1 mile a day. And whilst doing that, the smiling is actually with 3 Gs. Some people pronounce it smiling go, but it is just smiling with 3 Gs. And the first G is gratitude, the second G is generosity, and the third G is growth. So out of the difficult time that I had, it kind of birthed really what's proved to be the purpose that I think I was probably looking for, and the meaning that I'd be able to attach to getting out of the difficult spell. And from there, fortunately, my mental health has been pretty stable. I'm not Superman. I'm a human. We all have varying emotions and things like that. That just is being a human being. But yeah, it certainly improves thanks to this kind of trajectory that I've found myself on over the last 9 years or so.
And I know that, the work you're doing now, the fundraising you're doing now for Samaritans, it's worth saying, although people think about, and I say, 116, 123, there's a website there, but the resources that are on offer from organizations like Samaritans that give you an opportunity, not just to call a number and speak to someone, but just to read up and educate yourself a little bit, so that if you are the sort of person who is Googling, and that's basically how most of us get our information, you will find your way to these websites, and that will just almost explain sometimes a little bit more about your mental health. I find it, fascinating that if you say to someone about, I'm really struggling, and you say to them, well, how much sleep are you getting? How much coffee are you drinking? How much alcohol are you drinking? Where was the last time you had some time off work? Where was the last? It doesn't take long for them to go, all right, well, no, I only get about 5 hours sleep at night. Probably drink too much. Don't do any exercise. Once you've got that knowledge, it's very empowering, isn't it? To think, well, actually, I can do those things. Naturally, those things then start to flow. But nobody's ever taught that at school, so you got to pick it up somewhere. No. So it's great that the Samaritans is a good example here. There's lots of others out there. You mentioned Calm as well. That just those little hints. Then 3 or 4 months down the line, you think, oh, actually, no, I do feel different.
Absolutely. with mental health, it's a sliding scale. I think we're not taught, as you say, we're not taught that it is a sliding scale, that you don't have to be in crisis to feel that you can get better. There's ways to get better. And that's a big thing for me, was a lady, Carol Dweck. She wrote a book called The Growth Mindset. And it's kind of the notion that where you're at right now has no determining factors to where you can get to, but it's going to require sort of purposeful practice. So as you say, it's almost doing an internal reflection as to, right, where in my life could I make improvements? Maybe scoring it on a scale of 1 to 10, right, sleep. If I had to think on a scale of 1 to 10, and then, yeah, it's a nice way of just almost introspectively diving into these varying facets that we know, thanks to Google, thanks to incredible resources such as Samaritans, that we can sort of learn to think, right, how can we get just a little bit better? That might be, as you say, go to bed that little bit earlier. It might be going out and just without your phone, just having 5 minutes and just opening up to what's around you. So yeah, it's an education to actually understand kind of the complexity of mental health, yet can also be a simple notion of where we're at and how can we make sort of improvements for our own selves.
Can I ask you about sort of that journey that you're on? I understand there was a death within the family, a suicidal death within the family, quite close to where you're at in terms of your own journey. Obviously, any sort of death within the family is really difficult. When suicide, we know that there's so much sort of stigma that comes around it. Given what you'd experienced in the 2-3 years previous to that, did that make you sort of think much harder about that particular incident? Did it sort of make you want to double down or double up, if you like, on what you were doing and how you wanted to do it?
Yeah, for sure. So, my family sadly lost our uncle in 2017, November, December time, to suicide. And prior to that, all of my fundraising efforts and things like that were for Mind charity. And like I say, they're a fantastic charity, incredible work, incredible things that they do. But the death of my uncle made me just realize that when someone's in that time of need, that particular moment where, it's where decisions are made, just to know that if he had just called 116, 123, and just spoken to someone, you just never know what the outcome could have been, whether he could have been saved and things. So it really did. It really made me just think I need to be there, or I need to do things for those people that are in that particularly difficult place. Like I said about the sliding scale of mental health, when you're really at that lowest point, it doesn't matter why you're there. If you're feeling what you're feeling, it's totally valid, it's totally justified. But you just, that's who I really want to help the most, are those that need it most. And I just saw the incredible work Samaritans do, and it just aligned to think, if I can raise awareness, first of all, of the telephone service and all the other things that they do, if I can make money for people, so that they can continue to offer their 24/7 phone line, it feels almost like my duty, and it's an opportunity to at least find some meaning from the suffering that both I and my family, to be honest, continue to feel today. That void doesn't go away, and that pain, it kind of moves on to those that are left behind. So I just want to do all I can to give some meaning to the sadness, really.
No, absolutely. No, and thank you for your honesty around that situation. Can I ask you now, in terms of the measures that you've put in place, the things that you've learned, do you find that they're bulletproof in terms of your own mental health? I imagine there's nothing worse than thinking that physical activity is going to be good for your mental health, and maybe running a marathon and finding that you still feel a little bit down. Like, do you find that the measures that you've got in place now have offered that resilience, or there are other things you lean on that give you those opportunities to maybe get a bit of a break from your own head at times?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I always sort of see the endurance and the physical activity as kind of, we're all on an endurance journey, and that is our experience of life. By putting myself in these, what I call voluntary adversity situations, such as running a marathon every day or doing an ultra marathon, anything that, you kind of don't really want to do, I like to believe that it's going to enhance, as we've said, mental resilience, mental strength, and hopefully it will make me stronger for the times that, such as, the telephone call with regards to my uncle, or just something that I can't avoid, something that just kind of blindsides you and hits you. So from that perspective, it's certainly enhanced my kind of resilience and my understanding of myself as a person. But to say that it cures everything, that wouldn't be true. It's kind of a way to manage things. Again, when I'm on these journeys, it's very powerful for me because I'm connecting so many sort of components, such as the physical exercise, but it's the meaning, it's the purpose, it's getting up every day knowing that I have to do this, the benefit it's doing for others. So when I'm in challenges such as this, my mental health's probably the best it is in terms of feeling really, really purposeful and strong. I think it will be very important that after the challenge is concluded, when that daily purpose is not there the same, that's when it's kind of almost a case of, right, let's recalibrate, let's see how we can bring other things in. So it's a constant, I'm not going to use the word battle because that's a negative connotation, but it's a constant, recalibrating. But mindfulness, meditation, reading, spending time with friends, all of those things, family, it's also important. So it's just finding the balance. Right now, with the challenge, I'm not getting to see my family quite as much, but that can all change once this is out the way. So it's but it's a constant recalibrating, I would probably call it.
I don't know about you. I found sort of as I sort of entered adulthood, a lot of the things that I did, which were those structured things of I've got to get out of bed, and it might have been sort of like the scout stuff or the education stuff, and then it becomes work, and you almost become like 100% defined in your adult life, or feel like you're 100% defined in your adult life by essentially what job you've got and going to work every day. I mean, we're not expecting everyone to run a marathon every single day, but actually, there's surely a lot in that of I've got to make time for myself to do this, and that might be a volunteering thing. It might be a knitting club. It might be netball on a Tuesday night. It might be five-a-side football once a week. It might be something that you do with your kids that actually makes you feel like you've got a sense of purpose beyond the churn, if you like. These points which just take you to the next level. I find it as I'm getting older, it's more important to find those, because the more you do stuff that becomes the churn, the less enjoyment you get from it. And the more you find that 2, 3, 4 weeks, 4, 5 months have passed by, and you've been busy all the time, but you've not really done anything. And I guess with a challenge like yours, you've got that purpose of like, you're invested in that thing that you're doing, that no one can say at any point, well, James is just cracking on with life, because he's definitely doing something. I think we can all find something like that.
Yeah, I always use the term sort of do something that makes your heart sing. Do something that just makes you feel, you might even lose that sense of time, just completely immersed in something. And it might be a case of having to try lots of things before you find it. Like running can be a very uncomfortable endeavor if you're going from not running to running. And I'm not saying that running is for everyone, it's not, but I think we can all, as you've said, we can all find something that brings us joy, takes us away from there's an element of monotony in life, takes us away from that, and just gives us that little smile and that feeling, almost like that childlike feeling of not a care in the world, and you're just doing it for the joy of the moment. Doesn't matter about the outcome, it's just the process. And I think if we can all connect to that, and it might just be 5-10 minutes once a week, and then that might become twice a week. And I'm not saying spend 5 hours a day on it, because, for most people, that is not at all a wise use of time. But I think when you can connect with something that just makes you feel a little bit lighter and makes you just feel good is I think what we can all aspire for sure.
We'll get links to the Smiling website with all those extra G's. We'll get that up on the
Yeah.
podcast notes as well, and also to your fundraising as well, where people can find out more about the fundraising causes. We mentioned the Samaritans as well. There's always signposting to Samaritans on the podcast in the note as well. I can't not mention, just over my shoulder here, my first ever 10K medal, which I achieved last
Fantastic.
weekend.
Oh, good
My
on you. What
first-
race was it?
So it was in my local hometown, Chorley 10K.
Yep.
We say it had a 600-foot incline elevation on the run, which was not fun. On the start of this nice warm weather we've had. Yeah, that was then. That was it.
Wow.
That-
Again, it's that voluntary university. The harder the endeavour, the greater the reward, right? And did you enjoy it?
You know what? I enjoyed it, but what I wanted to ask you this, and I've thought about this quite a bit, because I sometimes listen to podcasts, spoken word podcasts when I'm running, because that's sort of the me time, and I get to focus on what people are saying at that very moment. When I was doing the 10K, because I was doing, it's that race environment, I didn't have my headphones on. What I found that I was doing was I was almost thinking 3 miles down the line, and I was thinking, I've got to do this, and it was a lap thing, so I've got to do this again, and I was placing myself in the future and imagining how tired I was in the future, as opposed to feeling like, well, you're not tired now, so you just carry on. I wanted to ask you about that's from a mindset point of view, that every day you get up and it's one step in front of the other, but you know that you've run in the 26 miles. What are those things that you can do when you're in that situation where I'm big into this sort of idea of people who embrace persistence. The idea of, well, we just got to keep on. And actually, if the thing we're doing is keeping on, then that's what we're going to do. What for you are those things that keep that one foot in front of the other, that don't let the mind wander, that don't let those sort of, not even negative thoughts in, but you create a space within your mind where the doubt can creep in, where your brain suddenly goes, are you sure you can do this? Whereas if you're running every single day, there's not much room for that sort of negativity, is there?
Yeah, I mean, I think the key from a meditative perspective is being a witness to what thoughts are arising. Don't try and push them away. Don't spend too much time with them, but just be aware of them, and then in some way come back to the moment that you're in. That might be connecting the sound of your foot hitting the gravel or the pavement. It might be the sound of the birds. And honestly, on some days, if I've had a bad night's sleep, that battle is continuous. It's constantly, my mind's wandering, my mind's wishing I was further down the trail, my mind was wishing I was closer to that cup of tea in the shower. And those thoughts are absolutely fine, but you just can't lose yourself to them. So you have to just keep having the awareness to, as soon as you recognize that you've had the thought, smile at it, accept it, but then come back to what you're feeling in this very moment, or what you're hearing, or what you're smelling, kind of connecting with the senses. But it's totally natural to experience what you experience with that. But again, we can also learn from that in terms of how we live our lives as well. We're constantly looking for the next thing or the next thing rather than being in the moment. So it's always, for me, every time I'm out on the trail doing this challenge, I'm thinking, how can this be related to how I'm living my life as well? So if I'm losing myself to the desire to be at the end, like, I'm kind of missing the point in, as cliche as it is, the whole process. But yeah, some days I just accept that it's going to be rough out there, but it's a non-negotiable. It's so much more than just for myself. Like, some days are harder than others, but as long as you, as cliche as it is, as long as you put one foot in front of the other and continue, doesn't matter if you have to walk, doesn't matter if you have to crawl, whatever you've got to do, as long as you get to that finish. It's amazing what a good night's sleep does to then re-energize yourself for the next day, and it can be a totally different experience.
You've obviously got another finishing line coming up tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that.
Yeah.
Not how confident, that's not the right word, but how committed do you feel to that December 31st, 2024 final 26.2 miles?
Yeah, I mean, more committed than I've ever been committed to anything. I mean, like I say, it's a privilege, even on the difficult days. The fact that I'm able to run, the fact that I have manipulated my days with work and things so that I have this time in the morning. I mean, particularly during the summer months, I love running in the warmth. It's joy. I do have to just remember that. So yeah, I couldn't be more committed if I feel like I've navigated some really difficult times between the start and now. I really appreciate there's going to be difficult times ahead, but in this very moment, as we've spoken about, things are going great. So it's just try and stay as present as you can, but allow yourself just the occasional visualization of what that last day could look like, but know that there's a long way between now and then.
James, we wish you all the best for your, the rest of the year. Can we catch up again before the end of the journey, if you like?
Absolutely. Yeah. By all means.
It'd be great to sort of catch up and see whether or not the sort of the mindset ideas have changed, or whether you've introduced other elements to it as well. And I'm sure more people will come on board as well who want to get involved in the work you're doing. We'll signpost to the Samaritans fundraising you're doing and the fundraising page, the Smiling website as well, which you mentioned too. We'll get the links to that too. We wish you all the best for tomorrow and the day after that and the day after that and beyond. Thank you so much for joining us on Mental Health Monday.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate the chat.
I hope you've enjoyed this week's podcast. Thanks for checking out Mental Health Monday. My name is Mick Coyle. You can find me on Twitter at Mr. Mick Coyle. You can also find me, Mick Coyle, on Facebook as well. Don't forget, if you want to speak to somebody about your mental health, you can do so. The Samaritans, free to call on 116 123. You can find mental health services where you are. Just look for the Hub of Hope. Type in your postcode. It'll find those mental health services close to you. And for support in a crisis, you can text SHOUT to 85258. That's if you're experiencing a personal crisis, you're unable to cope and need support. SHOUT to 85258. That's a text line. Do get involved in those services. In an absolute emergency, always remember the number to call is 999. Thanks for downloading the podcast this week. We'll be back next week with more Mental Health Monday. I hope you've enjoyed this week's podcast. Thanks for checking out Mental Health Monday. My name is Mick Coyle. You can find me on Twitter at Mr. Mick Coyle. You can also find me, Mick Coyle, on Facebook as well. Don't forget, if you want to speak to somebody about your mental health, you can do so. The Samaritans, free to call on 116 123. You can find mental health services where you are. Just look for the Hub of Hope. Type in your postcode. It'll find those mental health services close to you. And for support in a crisis, you can text SHOUT to 85258. That's if you're experiencing a personal crisis, you're unable to cope and need support. SHOUT to 85258. That's a text line. Do get involved in those services. In an absolute emergency, always remember the number to call is 999. Thanks for downloading the podcast this week. We'll be back next week with more Mental Health Monday.